Hello there, everyone. It's Gen X Men back with another Tabletop Tuesday video. Series of videos where I cover all kinds of tabletop games, gaming reviews, gaming information, and pretty much anything gaming. Today, I've got a crazy, original, and fascinating system I wanted to give a review of. Fantasy Flight Games, now Edge Studios, Dice System. Yes, you'll note I'm not covering the entire system or any of their core books, rule books in particular. That is the subject of a much longer video. This is only covering their dice system, which, if you get the dice system down, you've got the entire system down for what it's worth. So, now, this is hands down one of, if not the most unique dice systems I have ever been exposed to. And feel free to reply in comments if you've come across something equally unique or more so, as the case may be. Now, these dice, at one time very recently, were very difficult to get a hold of. I myself came across them at a flea market where I bought one of those, teaser starter kind of sets for a quarter. And that got me sucked into the system, which I was just like, oh my God, I've never played anything like it. So, but they were going for quite a bit, these dice, but now they're down to about $15 on Amazon for a full set, which is a very good price based on, but they're easily twice as much on eBay. So I guess the eBay sellers didn't get the memo that Edge has started reprinting the books and putting out new dice. There's also an app out there for those of you techie folks who like to roll dice on their phones. So there's that. Now, every dice, I mean, just diving right into this, every dice roll in this system, think about it as an opposed check, as we know in other RPGs. You assemble your pool of dice based on your innate ability, skills, and equipment, and the opposing side does the same. Now, we're all very familiar with tasks of greater difficulty driving up or down, as in the case of Thaco, but I digress, the target number needing to be rolled. However, in this system, it actually changes the dice you and the GM reach for. So it's interesting. Bear with me here. Now, when you roll, you're not simply determining success. I know a lot of GMs, myself especially, like to layer detail and implication into the success or failure of the rolls. For example, let's say the target number is 15. Player rolls a 30. Not only do I like to go big and bombastic over the effects of such a roll, granting double damage and all that, but I like it to make something epic and appropriate to the scene, give the players that extra oomph they came for. I mean, our audience is everything after all. This dice system actually weaves that right into the dice results themselves. In this system, there are 7 types of die. The die faces can be blank, but they're more often they feature a variety of symbols specific to that die. Typical dice pools range like between 5 and 8 dice. You're covering the majority of situations, just a big old pool of dice, and it's fun. Difficulty and circumstance can adjust this pool up or down in both number and type of dice. And as with all RPGs, the GM is advised that if there's no reason to roll, don't make the players roll. Rolling this kind of dice pool is best reserved for something that can actually be tense or important. Now, there are 2 broad categories of dice along with a third element. The 2 sides are the beneficial dice the player is rolling to accomplish something, and the negative side trying to prevent them from succeeding. There's also a force die, but that's a bit of a different critter needing its own explanation. We'll get to that in a minute. The positive dice are boost, ability, and proficiency. There's 3 types of dice. They're opposed by setback, difficulty, and challenge dice. So you've got 3 types of dice on either side. The force dice are not used in standard dice pools, only for very specific situations, so don't worry about that one right now. Now, this is the blue-white 6-sided called the boost die. It represents special advantages or boosts. These are gained through luck or chance and advantageous actions. These represent things like having ample time to complete a task, which we see in my solo play videos as, preparation. And in that system, in the D6 system, preparation grants another D6 to roll. In this system, you get one of these blue-white ones, which can generate successes. Let's see here. That's these explosive symbols right here, this explosion thingy, or advantages, which is this alliance symbol here. And yes, the boost die can grant boost dice, so they feed off themselves. Now, that boost can be granted to yourself on your next die roll, next turn, whatever, or to someone else. So that's fun. So you can, you generate a good thing and you can hand that off to somebody else. It's pretty cool. The boost die is opposed by the setback die. That's another d6. It's entirely black, at least in the base set of dice. The symbols on it represent a failure, which is this pyramid looking thing here, and threat, which is this imperial looking thing here. Failures are exactly what they sound like, fails. Every failure, knocks out a success. And that's how you know if you've succeeded or failed. You tally up the successes and the fails, and if there's even a single success left, you succeed. If all that's left are failures, you fail. So when I roll, I tend to scoop up the successes and failures and scoop them off with each other, one for one, so I can visually see if there's any successes left. I'm a visual based person. Hopefully that'll tip somebody else out there. Threats are negative consequences or side effects, such as taking longer than expected at a task, allowing an enemy an advantage of some kind, or suffering additional strain during a stressful situation. And yes, strain and stress are important in this game. They're numerically tracked. It's almost like hit points. It's kind of neat, as that's something that's been left entirely up to role playing for the vast majority of my experiences. Now, a threat doesn't directly impact success or failure. So it's possible for a task to succeed, but have some lingering threat indicating success was tainted somehow. It's left entirely up to the GM to figure this out for the players. And these could include things like being knocked prone, losing your cover, taking more time than expected, suffering strain, performing an action that would otherwise wouldn't be strenuous, or giving an enemy an opportunity to perform some maneuver. So it can vary. And that's the burden is on the GM to come up with those kind of things. So the next die is the green 8-sided, this thing here. This is the ability die. You get one of these for every point you have in an ability. And they represent the base dice pool, the base pool of dice that you're going to form. Unskilled checks use these dice, and most dice pools will include at least one of them. The symbols on them are the same, with, you've got your successes and your advantages. Same stuff as on the boost die. Opposing the ability die is the difficulty die. It's a purple 8-sided. And you can see here it has the same, you got failure and you've got threat symbols as the same as the setback die, and they function the same way. These represent the inherent challenge or complexity of a task. Obviously, more difficult dice or more difficulty dice in a pool represent more challenging tasks. You might think, oh, players get the green 8-sided for their ability to dice pool, and bad guys get the purple ones. But what if there are no bad guys to represent to indicate an opposing ability pool? What the GM then simply sets the difficulty based on guidelines presented in the core books. Now, exactly like West End games, there are difficulty levels described by terms like simple, easy, average, hard, daunting, and formidable. So they're very similar. Simple tasks get no dice, while easy ones get a single purple sided, with the opposing dice pool increasing by one for each level. So, you go up to average, you got 2, hard, you got 3, so on. So in the West End games, shooting someone point blank would be an easy target number 6 difficulty. Here, it would be easy, but with a single opposing purple 8-sided. The player would then roll their dice pool and see if they can beat any failure results produced by this purple dice. Easy? Easy. Sort of. Now we get to the 12-sided dice. The beneficial one is this yellow one here. This is called a proficiency dice. Now, what is a proficiency dice? A proficiency dice is an ability dice that got promoted. Firing a blaster is just a base ability without training. However, a lot of characters in Star Wars have training with a blaster. And if they do, for each rank they have in blasters, beyond their abilities, they've trained up promotes a green-sided to a yellow 12-sided. Now, these yellow 12-sideds are awesome for a couple reasons. Firstly, they contain more success and boost results than the green 8-sided, so there's a greater chance of good stuff happening. Further, they have this symbol here, this lightsaber symbol. So you can say, yeah, I think it is. I think it's lightsaber. Anyway, this is called a triumph, and it is very important. Each triumph counts as a success. It can also trigger very powerful effects, as this is how you crit. So a triumph is your natural 6 on the luck die for West End Games D6 system. Triumph is a natural 20 for D20 systems, and so on and so forth. Also, and this is really cool, weapons and other equipment sometimes have special qualities in the Fantasy Flight, Edge Studios game system. Now, these abilities are listed in the item description, and they're too numerous to go into here. But basically, triumphs activate or pay for these special abilities. So when you have a triumph, you crit and something awesome, or you crit or something awesome happens. It depends on the weapon and so on. So basically triumphs are really cool. Now, opposing the triumph dice is this thing. This is the challenge dice, a red 12-sided. It represents the most extreme adversity and opposition. You're not going to see this dice unless you're running up against, say, elite units of some kind or very prepared opponents, that kind of thing. Like the proficiency dice, the challenge dice has a greater frequency of symbols, and these are all bad. They're the same failure and threat results, but also this thing here, let me show you here. Where'd he go? Here he is. There it is. This is the despair result. The despair counts as a failure, just as the triumph counts as a success. And just like triumph symbols, the despair results can produce powerful results, like a weapon jams, or its power pack is suddenly inexplicably depleted. Other effects can be generated as well by the GM based on the guidelines and the core rules. So, those are the two sides. You have 3 different types of dice on each side. Now, I am going to take a couple minutes to roll some dice here real quick and show you some results and interpret them for you, and hopefully get you, a visual kind of results-based kind of like review, so you kind of see it. And you can get trained on it just as the way I did. That's how I had to learn it. I had to throw the dice down and be like, okay, so match this with this. Oh, okay, I kind of get it. So bear with me here. We're going to do some dice. All right, everybody. Just a disclaimer before this starts. I was not compensated or sponsored by Star City Games or Magic the Gathering in any way. I just like this. I wanted to show you all, one of my playmats. Maybe if I stay on YouTube long enough, you'll see my other playmats that I use most of the time. It's a little racy. But anyway, we are going to roll some dice today. We've got our Fantasy Flight game dice here. Now, I'm going to grab some other ones as well. Okay. So let's do the basic, hey, I'm Joe Schmo. I'm firing a blaster into a stormtrooper's face. It is point blank range. So let's say Joe Schmo has no training in a blaster, but he's got 2 ranks in his dexterity, agility, whatever it is. So he's going to get 2 ability dice. He's going to get these 2 green dice. There's his starting dice pool is just these 2. Now, the difficulty to hit this stormtrooper is going to be, let's say there's nothing taken into account. Stormtrooper isn't dodging or anything like that. It's just going to be a difficulty 1 rank, points blank rank. So you have your 1 difficulty dice. So you gather up all these dice, and yes, you roll them all. And look what we got. Okay, so we've got 3 of these advantage ones, and we've got a failure. Now, these advantages are not successes. They just add positive effects, which is these dice. So we have 3 of those. Now we have a failure result. So this shot at point blank range actually failed because we generated no successes, none of these explosion type results, but we did generate a failure. So we missed, but we have advantages. And there's a lot of ways a GM can interpret that. They can interpret that as like, oh, hey, you shot at him. He backpedals. He's on his back. He's prone. Have some boost dice on your next roll. That kind of thing. It's up to the GM. The GM will set that. Now, let's say that we have a trained rebel soldier in the exact same scenario. So our difficulty, we're going to have one difficulty. Now, the trained rebel soldier has a rank in blasters. Now, every rank you have trained in a skill promotes your ability dice. So he has one rank, so one of these greenies turns into one of these yellows. Now we have our dice pool. Same number of dice, but we have greater chance of success because the yellows have more positive impacts. So we roll. We have a success. We have a threat. And we have a blank, which means nothing. So this succeeded because we have one success and we have no fails. So nothing to cancel out, so it hit. However, we have a threat. Now, what that can be is you lose your advantageous position. It's up to the DM and based on the situation. So, and you can get crazy with these dice. Let's say you've got two difficulty and you've got two ranks in your skill and you've got three in your dex or whatever it is. So you roll in five dice and you roll this and you're like, okay, I've got these two threats. I've got this is blank, this is nothing. This is blank, this is nothing. I have two. What were they called? The advantages. So the two threats and the two advantages cancel each other out, so they go over here in the discard. But we also have two failures. So this is an absolute epic fail. This is a fail. No successes, no threats, no advantages, just fail. So anyway, that's just a quick, ugly example of rolling these dice and how they can be interpreted. And like I said, it's a fun system. It's a narrative system. It's descriptive. I enjoy it a lot for solo play, but yeah, but I'll get into my thoughts on that here in a minute. Okay. So you all have some examples now. Now, there's also this die here. This is the force die. It's another 12-sided, but it's all white. Y'all notice it's got empty circles and it's got filled in circles on it. The empty ones are light side points, while the darkened ones are dark side points. These results are strictly for generating resources for force users. Every force ability has a cost, and you have to roll these dice every round to see what points you have to pay those costs. So, in this system, you can't just poof use the force and things happen. Modified by a dice roll to determine level of success. But first, you have to generate the resources to use those abilities with this die here. Personally, I'm not crazy about this, especially as things generate dark side points. Narratively, I mean, you're telling me players are tempted by the dark side every round? I mean, that's really going to water down the insidious and epic nature of dark side temptation. Me, I like to present the dark side as a tempting voice. Here's a good example. My players are struggling against a foe, powerful villains pretty much got him on the ropes. They're rolling like crap. Whatever the situation, the bad guy's got his mojo going, and things are not going well for the players. And I love this. Player says, I'm going to attack him, or whatever. I set the DC, it's high. Player's sitting there, sweating bullets, knowing he's got a window of about a quarter inch to make that roll. Does he chance it? I swoop in right there. Well, you could have another couple dice. And they ask, what do you mean another couple dice? Did I forget a bonus or something? And I say, no, you didn't forget anything, but I'm just saying, you could have another couple dice. I mean, look at this guy. Wiping the floor with you and your friends like he's something amazing, but he's just a D-bag, and you know it. And it's not fair he has this advantage, is it? You deserve an advantage too. Let yourself get angry at this guy. Teach this guy a lesson. Just this one time. There's where it is. Dark side temptation. Give the players a couple extra dice on a swing and a dark side point later on. It's just one dark side point. It's not a big deal, right? So this system, yeah, and I really don't like gatekeeping players' abilities behind a roll of dice. If a player wants to play a space wizard, he's going to want to cast a space wizard spells. He's not going to want to ask Mother May I from the dice every round. So while I enjoy the base concept of the game, I don't care for the force dice aspect. Now, that leads me into my conclusion, which is this is a fascinating system. It has a lot of narrative oomph, and it can really instruct a fresh GM on how to add narrative depth to dice rolls, which is an important skill when playing these games. I mean, heck, these things were a blast to play solo. I mean, honestly, they almost take the place of what the folks these days call ciphers, where they ask a table about certain aspects of what's going on, like an interpretation. With this, you've got a slice of that interpretation baked into the dice result, so that's very neat. The downside, however, is that every roll can become a slogfest of interpretation. With experience, this delay can be brought down significantly, but it's always going to be there. Like I said, I really like these for solo play, but if you're around a tabletop with a gaggle of people interpreting these, they can slow down play significantly, especially if folks aren't intimately familiar with the system. I've ran a game like that, so yeah, I'm familiar with how it plays out with people who aren't experienced and familiar, and it can really turn them off, like just starting out. So all in all, it's not bad. But I do think it's got a couple of design challenges there are for everyone, and that's how I'd sum up the Fantasy Flight Games Now Edge Studio system. It's not for everyone. Comparing it to the original D6 system, those challenges become glaring, and even stacked against the D20 system from a few years ago, it's pretty much the same arguments. Now that being said, some folks are going to pick this up and it's going to be their system for life. It's quirky, it's fun, it adds a ton of narrative depth and nuance into every role. It is not bad by any stretch or definition. So give it a try. Let me know down in the comments what you thought. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed me yammering on about this system, and if you did, please consider hitting that like button. YouTube loves it when you do, and it helps my itty bitty little channel grow and thrive. But thank you so much for tuning in and giving me a moment of your time, and welcome to all the new subscribers joining us on this YouTube journey. Now, it's Tabletop Tuesday. Go out there, roll some dice, go on an adventure, generate some memories, and as always, have a good one.